welcome to the Creative Constitution podcast. Today I'm joined by a special guest, Wilfred La Salle. Hello, Wilfred. How are you?
Hello, how are you? How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Today's episode is all about Wilfred's learnings over the course of making 5 films, and all about post-production, special learnings for filmmakers. So it's going to be a really interesting one. We're going to delve into a bunch of different topics. But first of all, Wilfred, give us a little bit of background on yourself.
So I am from the Bronx, born and raised. I moved outside of the city about, I'd say, 10 years ago. I have a law enforcement background. I'm a former New York City correction officer. I've worked on the infamous Rikers Island. For those of you who don't know, it's a pretty tough jail.
Wow.
And I kind of dove into filmmaking back in 2019. I've always been a fan of movies. I've always loved the creative process of how a film is made. I was always fascinated with those kind of things. So I got into it in 2019. I made my first short film titled �𝐿𝐒. I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I just dove into it, and it was pretty intense because it felt more like a music video to me, looking back now. But the film was about 10 minutes and 44 seconds, but aesthetically, people loved it. They loved the soundtrack. They were like, what? I thought it was an extended trailer. I'm like, no, it's a short film.
Wow.
And, then we, from here on in, we made 𝐿𝐒 2, 𝐿𝐒 3, Graves, and now we are working on our 5th film, which is titled 𝐓𝐾𝐒, which will be out next year, April 15th, 2024.
Wow, amazing. What made you sort of decide to make sequels or prequels, whatever they were, like the 1, 2, 3, and were they all short films as well?
So 𝐿𝐒 was the first short film. And then I said, I wanted to raise the stakes a little bit higher. And we made 𝐿𝐒 2. 𝐿𝐒 2 was about 32 minutes, maybe 33. And that was the first film that we got on Amazon Prime. So that was a big accomplishment. For my cast
amazing.
And myself. It was pretty amazing. I didn't even think I could get on Prime, and here I am, I get on Prime. And then the next film that was made was Graves, which is separate from the 𝐿𝐒 films. That was my first full feature film. That film was about an hour and 30 minutes. And that was pretty challenging because it was very risky filming that film because we film guerrilla style here. We film where we just get up and we set up shop and we just start filming. So Graves was very dangerous, a dangerous film to film.
Yeah.
Then the next film was 𝐿𝐒 3, which was an hour and 30 minutes. That was the 3rd iteration of the 𝐿𝐒 saga and the conclusion of 𝐿𝐒 saga. And that was about an hour and 35 minutes. And so it was two shorts, 2 features. And then now 𝐓𝐾𝐒 we're working on, which will be my 3rd feature. That's aimed to be around an hour and 45 minutes and set to be released in early 2024. So,
That's amazing. So
thank you.
That's great because so many filmmakers keep making short films and then they never really take that leap to feature films. So it's great to see that you sort of went that through that journey. What's some of the biggest sort of learnings that you've had from creating a feature film? Let's just talk about 𝐿𝐒 first. So you've got the short film versus the feature. What were the main differences between making both of them? Well,
first of all, I'll tell you this. Filming is very stressful. I don't know if anyone really, it could be very, very stressful. So I think a lot of people, when they go from a short to a feature, it's very challenging. There's so much more involved. There's so much involved just making a short film at itself. But to make a bigger film and have a bigger cast, it's stressful. And some of the challenges that I've had were scheduling. I'll be honest with you. It was very, very tough. Scheduling and having so many different people on the same schedule. It's hard to get 3 people on a schedule. Can you imagine about 20 people in one scene?
Oh my gosh. Yep. I have similar experiences. It's so hard. And then one person will call in sick or like another person will, I don't know, their cat will die or something. Like there's always something.
It's always something. It's literally always something. It's unpredictable, but I guess that's the beauty and that's the journey of why we make these films. It's the unpredictability, it's the creativity that goes into it, it's your vision, it's everything that you want, that you have here. I think the most important thing is having everything you have here, writing it down and then seeing it out. I think that's the most fulfilling experience that you can possibly have as a filmmaker.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. There's so much creative vision and sort of the challenges that go along with that. As the director, did you also write those films as well? Did you have full control over the whole process?
So I fully fund all of my films. So I'm the screenwriter, I'm the director, I'm the producer. Sometimes I'm the cinematographer. And so I wear many hats. You can understand how stressful and how much gray I might have in this hair. It can be quite stressful, as I said before. But yeah, it becomes challenging when you take on a lot. But for me, I'm a perfectionist, so I want things and I want to have full control over my own vision. So therefore, I don't have investors. I don't have any, big production company backing me. It's my independent company, La Salle Productions, and we fund everything. So I think that, having that, it gives me the creative freedom to kind of do whatever I want, step outside the box and not be limited by anyone's limitations and saying, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that because, but that's the whole reason I created this company, was to have that freedom to also give the actors and actresses a platform in which we could just showcase their talents.
How do you go about finding the funding for your films? I mean, we don't really know the figures of sort of the films that you've done so far, but what is your sort of strategy of finding funding for the films, especially for features? And if you pay people as well, the costs add up really, really quickly. So how do you go about that with your company?
So with my company, what I do is, obviously, we're a small company. I can't afford to pay the actors and actresses. So they're basically contracted and they get paid through reels. So any footage, when they come on, they're paid through that. That's their supplemental monetary payments. Funding, I self-fund everything. So I work 2 jobs to fund these films. A lot of people don't know that. And a lot of people think you need a fancy budget. You need $1 million budget. You don't. You just need the drive. You need to save up for at least 1 day of shooting. And as long as you start, you'll either find a way or you'll always find an excuse. That's just my way of thinking.
That's so true. I've self-funded everything, and it's only really now that I'm starting to get a bit more interest from people wanting to support my projects. I think once filmmakers start to build a bit of a portfolio, it makes a big difference. Are you finding that at all with your films, where now that you've got quite a repertoire, is it getting easier to get interest from other people to potentially fund your next film?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's getting a lot easier to get more talent. Now that it's funny, when I first started this journey, people laughed at me. At the time, I believe I was making about $35,000 a year. And people told me, I always learned this: if you want to kill a big dream, tell it to a small-minded person. They'll kill your dreams. And I basically, now it's getting easier in the sense that people are seeing what I'm doing and saying, hey, this guy's got something special here. He's consistent. He's constantly, every year we make a film. Since 2019, every year we've put out a film. Wow. And I think the consistency and everyone seeing the quality when they see my trailers, they're like, wow, it doesn't even look like an independent film. This looks like you have, a friend of mine, he saw my films and then his buddy saw it. He's like, what kind of budget does this guy have? Does he have $1 million budget, $2 million budget? He's like, no, this guy is self-funded. He is the budget, and he couldn't believe it because the films are shot very, very high quality. They're edited very high quality. So everything that you see that I put out is all self-funded. There's no financial backing. I'm the financial backing. So that's pretty much it. I mean, listen, my fiance is going to kill me because she wants this house and I'm over here spending money on movies, but we're not going to tell how much the movies cost. But she has an idea and she's like, you spend all this money on movies. You're crazy. You're weird. What's wrong with you? I'm like, this is what I love to do. I think if you love something enough, you'll do whatever it takes when your back is up against the wall to make it happen. And I think that's what's kind of happened here with me. My back was up against the wall. Yeah. And I just always had a passion for it. So I decided, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go all in. And that's what I've been doing since.
No, that's amazing. Super commendable. I think so many people could take away, a bit of inspiration from that. I do agree. If you tell someone that's small-minded or even is slightly jealous or envious or whatever, a big dream, they'll kill it. They'll find some way to lower that spark. And the funding is definitely the hardest part, but you can make stuff for free. It's actually wild what you can get away with these days, with the camera equipment too. What sort of cameras were you using? I mean, these days you can make something look amazing with just a phone. So I'm curious to know what sort of the production process was like for you, and whether you edited your films as well to maybe lower some of the costs.
When I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. Like I told you, I just knew I wanted to make these films. So I had hired different cinematographers and different editors. I had worked with Max Bovin. He's a visual effects artist. He's great. He's edited 𝐓𝐇𝐈𝐒 and Graves. I worked with Brian Visuals over here. He's amazing. He edited 𝐓𝐇𝐈𝐒 and 𝐓𝐇𝐈𝐒 2. So those guys were paid, and the film, when I first started, I was using a cell phone, just to make my short videos. And then as I've learned the process, I just was watching like the cinematographer. I would just stand over his shoulder and see what he was doing. I'm like, wow, this guy's like watching how he uses the camera, where the camera needs to be. And then I ended up purchasing about $10,000 of equipment that I had no idea how to use. I basically had to watch every YouTube channel you can think of to teach myself how to film, how to edit, because I had no clue. I just recently started around, I would say, 𝐓𝐇𝐈𝐒 3 and Graves, like learning how to actually edit and really get into like, okay, this is how it's done. Because my fiance was like, you can't call yourself a production company if you don't know how to edit and use a camera. I'm like, you know what? You're kind of right. So,
Fair enough.
Long story short, here I am with all this camera equipment, and she's like, it's collecting dust. You got to learn how to use it. And for Oculus, I actually dove into Oculus, and now I'm actually filming Oculus. I decided to take, be courageous and film it. I was scared at first, but I watched a lot of YouTube videos before, and they were very informative. YouTube teaches you everything. I'm pretty sure you know this,
I love YouTube. I was on there yesterday trying to figure out how to improve sound on everything. Because, sound will kill a project faster than anything. And I've had experiences with that in my previous short film where, the sound just was not where it needed to be. And the quality of the whole thing just kind of goes down significantly. But in saying so, I understand, you want to do everything as well. But there comes a time where you have to outsource some of the different skills and such. So who was doing your sound? Did you have a lot of crew on set? What's the size of your crew on your general production? What's been the case so far?
So now I started off with a crew of about 4. I believe right now La Salle Productions, as of this moment with Oculus, we have about 54 cast members and crew, cast and crew. Yeah.
That is big.
Yeah, it is very big. And I'll tell you this. So we have a lot of the cast members who are in the film. What they'll do is when they're not in a scene, they will come, and I've taught them how to operate the boom mic. They will do script supervisor. I have Jack Caruso as a script supervisor. He's one of my cast members. I have 𝐆𝐿𝐼𝐒 Perez, who does the boom mic. I have Alfredo Avila, who's also a cast member who does the boom mic for me. So it's a buddy system here. We're really a family. We really are a big family. I can't even tell you. We have group messages. I mean, we support each other in everything. So I've built the family that I've never really had. I mean, it is absolutely incredible what people can do when they come together to create something bigger than themselves. I think it's truly remarkable, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you're using people that are, I guess, normally sometimes pigeonholed. You're an actor. You just go and sit down in that room when you're not being filmed, and then you're doing the complete opposite, where you're actually using everyone and you're almost maximizing efficiency. I would say.
Absolutely.
I love that. I'm a sucker for efficiency.
Let me tell you. Listen, and it works because I have Tara Beavers, who's now the main actress in Oculus. She's playing a character called 𝐍𝐿. She's the main character in the film, and we were doing a running scene. So here I am in the back of with the camera, and I'm saying to my buddy Jack, I'm like, Jack, we need to use your pickup truck. I want to get these running shots. So he's driving the car. I'm filming her as she's running to get that smooth gimbal shot. And it's just a buddy system. This is just what you do. You do it what you have, and you make it happen. That's just what it is. It's just being innovative, being creative, finding ways around these kind of barriers, and seeing just how much you actually want it. Because you're going to be tested every film that you make. You're going to be tested with any and every obstacle possible. I'm sure you face those obstacles. You just overcome them.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that you shoot quite guerrilla style. So does that mean you kind of, let's talk about locations. So with the guerrilla style, obviously, you could spend ages trying to get permits and all this other stuff.
It's super expensive.
So expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And it's time consuming. For example, in my first short film, I was really desperate for a a courthouse because I really wanted to include that scene. But after emailing almost every courthouse in the neighborhood and nearby, no one got back to me. We just couldn't make it work. And eventually we got around it by like putting some MacGyver stuff together. But I'm interested to hear kind of what you do. So guerrilla style for locations, what does that look like for you? Do you just kind of run and gun it and just hope for the best that you don't get caught? What happens?
So I'll tell you what we do. For Hilo 3, we needed a jail. And obviously we're independently funded. So our budget is no budget. So a buddy of mine who is a custodian at a school, Jay Santos, he actually came up and he said, listen, you could film inside the school. I said, you know what? The school actually looks like a jail. Who would know what looks like a jail? Me, I worked in a jail, so I know. And we actually, for a jail scene in Hilo 3, we shot it inside of a school. And it looks like a legit jail.
Oh my gosh.
That's how much improvised, that's how much like creativity. It just, when you have nothing and you're literally broke and you have no budget, you just start to get creative. That's just what it is. You start to get creative. You're like, you have no choice. So in doing that, the audience was like, wait a minute, how did he get permission to shoot in a jail? Who is this guy? And another thing, we had Oculus. We're filming Oculus. I met a friend of mine who knew a priest. I just happened to have dinner with the guy. We have breakfast in Connecticut. We had the same kind of interests. Next thing you know, he's like, listen, just pay the Con Ed bill. I'll let you use the church. We got to film in the church. Just networking. So Oculus, it's coming out next year. We got to film in a church. We filmed in Jersey. We filmed in upstate New York. We filmed in all of these crazy locations. So if I'm looking for a certain aesthetic, I'll just Google it. I'll YouTube a location. And if you watch my films, you'll be like, how the hell does he get these locations? I just do research. It's basically it. Do research, get there early, and hope for the best. So it's kind of like hope we don't get arrested, which is almost happened twice in Graves. So.
Oh my God. These are great BTS stories that you can include in some like trivia things on IMDb and whatever. That's so cool. Yeah. I think if you don't ask, you don't get. And I think it's so Correct. True for filmmakers. I know that there's a bit of a balance because, people like Quentin Tarantino will say, if you have access to a Mustang, a church, and a farm, you include that in your script. Whereas sometimes, you could get away with, okay, I'm going to write in a jail, a courthouse, and like a drug house or something. But then you don't have access to those things. So what is sort of like your approach when you're writing the scripts? Because you've been writing all of your films. So do you incorporate what the resources you've already got? Or is that something that you sort of wing as you go and you're like, okay, we have to find this location?
Both. Absolutely both. So we shot, it's funny, you mentioned a courthouse. We wanted to shoot, Hilo 3 has a criminal defense attorney. He's kind of arrogant. He has kind of a Tony Stark, Iron Man kind of vibe to him. His name is, the actor who plays him is 𝐊𝐃𝐒 Perez, and the criminal defense attorney is Luis Estevez. We actually went to White Plains, New York by us. It's a library. It looks like a courthouse. We shot the exteriors of him coming out. So it looks like he's coming, gives the illusion that he's coming out of a courthouse.
Wow.
So just to show you how innovative we get here. But when I write my scripts, I write them according to the resources I have. And honestly, when I wrote Oculus, I wrote a church, but it's the law of attraction. I have a vision board. So I believe in the universe. I believe that if you ask for it and you put it out there, it'll happen and you do the work. So I wrote Oculus with the church, and then we ended up getting the church. It just worked out.
Amazing. I love that. Well, let's talk about post-production now, which in some ways is the hardest part of the filmmaking process, because sometimes you can run and gun things, you can wing it, you can guerrilla style everything while you're doing the film and making it. But then you get into the post-production suite, you're like, oh gosh, here we go, the trouble commences. It's also a very time-consuming process. So I'd love to know, first of all, what are your thoughts on sort of the differences between a short film in post-production and a feature in post-production? Are they the same? Are they different?
So they're the same, but they're both very different. So my philosophy when I shoot before I even get to post-production is overshoot everything. You always aim to overshoot. I always tell people you don't cut corners, just overshoot it. I'll ask my actor, hey, listen, you want to do another one? They're like, yeah, let's do another one. I overshoot everything. That's just me.
Yeah.
From a short film to a feature film, I'd say it's similar, but it's also hard because when you have a feature film, you're looking at B-roll. You have to incorporate soundtracks. You have to incorporate pacing, timing. The editing process takes forever. I look at I probably had the editor do about 126 edits.
Wow.
And I'm not even kidding you. And I mean, he wanted to kill me. I mean, but he was paid very well. And, it is time consuming. For me, I'm a perfectionist. So I always want to pick the best shots for the actors, the actresses, reaction shots, emotion. You want to capture all of those small things that people don't see in a scene, pacing, making sure that the cuts aren't abrupt. A lot of people, a lot of this stuff is overlooked. When people see it, they're just like, oh, I'll just cut it. And they don't realize that reaction shots are very important. Pacing, making sure that the emotion, that the audience has a connection with each character and what their purpose is in the film. It's pretty much the same. Shorter films for me, yes, it's less time. But either way, �𝐿𝐒 took me about 2.5 to 3 months to edit. 𝐿𝐒 1. And it's only 10 minutes and 44 seconds because I missed drone shots. I have to go get drone shots. I have to get pickup shots, B-roll shots. It's endless. Night shots. I have to get this. And you're never done. When you think you're done, you're just never done. I think that's just what it is,
Yep. And a feature film obviously is so much more time consuming than a short film. I mean, even my short film at the moment, it's close to 6 months now, but it sometimes happens because you run into troubles in the post-production process. Sometimes things don't go the way you planned it. So I'd love to know sort of where you've had your main challenges and struggles throughout the post-production process.
So I've had issues where I've shot something, I didn't like it, and I went to go reshoot it. So I told the actors, I said, listen, I don't like how this came out, let's reshoot it. And they were like, all right, no problem. I've had things on set where post-production, I'll tell you, in the middle of production, we changed the script. I see the La Salle Productions model is the script is never the script. A lot of people can't understand that concept. And what I mean by that is we had a scene in Graves. We had Charles Alonso, who plays Salvatore Marcello. He's the main villain in Graves. And we had Christopher Levine, who is a good friend of mine. He's also a cast member. He plays Paolo Marcello, his brother. Mm-hmm. There was a line in there, and we cut, and I heard Charles, the actor, he said something like, I drink, I kill, I fuck. And I'm like, wait. I'm like, wait, what did you just say? He's like, no, I didn't mean to curse. I'm like, no, say that again. I said, but let's change the order. And he changed the order of it, and it became DFK, and drink, F, kill. And we used it in the script. We ran with that. Wasn't even scripted, and it turned out to be one of the biggest and best lines of the film, where people saw this film, they were like, oh my God, I love that line. That was just so good. So things happen on production and then post-production. I mean, like I said, I'm a perfectionist. If I don't like something, I tell the cast, listen, I need another shot. I want to do a pickup shot of this. They're usually very open-minded. And like I said, we've built a family, so that they trust my vision. They trust my leadership, and they're like, all right, we'll go do it. Let's do it. So everything and anything is going to happen when you're making films. And the more you make films, things are just going to happen. You think you get better, you do, but you never know. Things just happen. It's just filmmaking.
That's right. And do you tend to reuse the same people over and over now? Because a lot of filmmakers struggle with finding crew and cast and sort of putting the pieces together. So the more films you kind of do, the more of an Avengers team, I call it, that you can sort of tap into. What's your go? Because you like to mention family, so is the family in every movie?
Every movie, I reuse my actors and actresses, and I add on to the family. So everyone, usually about 85 to 90% of everyone comes back, and then I just add to that family. So I think that's essential, and I think that's one of the most important keys with my production, having it be a family. Everyone knows the goal. Everyone is very selfless. I've been fortunate enough to have such a great group of cast members. As you know, this industry is all about ego. This industry is about, you have a lot of narcissistic characters, a lot of personalities coming together. Most actors are like that. Some aren't. I've been fortunate enough to have such a group of amazing cast members come on, help me out through production, through post-production, and we've just built on that family. We've literally just built on it. And then every year, before we watch the movie or before we even premiere it on like Amazon Prime or any of these networks, any of these social platforms, we have a premiere. We rent out a movie theater.
Like a private one.
And then the cast gets to watch the film before it's even put out. So it's like a private screening, and it's actually incredible because everyone gives a speech. And they'll talk
that's
about their favorite
amazing.
moment. They'll talk about their favorite moment and say, Will's crazy. The script is not the script. Some of the actors, they hate that line, but it's funny to hear these stories when you hear them, from their perspective of what their experience was with you. So I think that it's essential in having the same core. If it works, if it's not broken, don't fix it, just add to it. And that's what we are here at La Salle Productions. We are one big family. And I can't tell you that enough. I mean, I've been blessed to have them because they're just so supportive and they're just amazing. They're amazing and they're so talented. So I do everything for them.
I love it. I love it. I think the sense of family is something that I like driving in as well. Because the more you build this strong foundation, I think the better your films become as well. Because then when they're on set, they don't really feel like it's a job. There's something beyond. There's something, perhaps a goal that everyone is working towards. And with La Salle Productions and sort of the films that you've been making, what do you think has been the driving factor of getting people motivated to perhaps work for free or to spend their time and energy with you on your films? What's the main goal or sort of the motivating factor that you've been incorporating?
So one of the biggest things is pushing my actors to their absolute best. I demand 150% from them. And I think that they know that. And I emphasize to them that this is more about them. If I can get them emotionally invested and I can get them invested in the sense that this is a family and that what we're doing, we're trying to better ourselves. We started in the basement in the middle of Mount Vernon doing premieres. We started from nothing. We've literally built this company together. And without them, there would be no La Salle Productions. I would tell you that now. The actors and actresses are the most important key in a production. Not the director, not anyone else, the talent. Because they're the ones bringing your visions to life.
Yeah.
So I have Christopher Levine, who flies down from LA. He left New York. He lives in LA now. He comes down. He doesn't get paid. He gets paid through reels. And he is invested. He's the main character in Oculus. And when you can I have actresses from PA, actors from Pennsylvania, they come down. And it's just gotten bigger and bigger. And the biggest part of this all is that they believe in the vision. They believe in what I'm doing so much that I can't let them down. So I push them to their absolute limits. I'm like, okay, we got to get them on Prime. Next, we got to get them on Tubi. We got to get them on Netflix. We got to get them in this film festival. I got to get media coverage. I will always push them as far as I can take them. And they always give me 150% on set. So how could I not, as a director, give them more when they give it to? It's a give and take. And we feed off of each other. And it's just magical what happens when people come together to create something bigger than themselves. I think that is the key. That is the key to filmmaking. I don't care what anyone says. You have to also take criticism. You also have to listen to your actors and actresses. I tend to listen to them. I'll go to them and I'll say, hey, listen, hey, Tara, how do you feel about this? Hey, Jack, hey, �𝐿𝐒𝐄, how do you feel about this? And they'll say, Will, I don't like this part. I like this. Okay, no problem. Let's say it your way. When you give them that creative freedom and you're not rigid with the script, it allows them to now say, all right, you know what, this guy, he's giving me the freedom. It allows them to invest more. They really now feel like they're a part of something. And they say, you know what, he believes it. My word means a lot to him. And if you can get them to do that and believe what you're doing, you can get anything out of them. You can literally get the best performances out of your cast. As long as you're willing to listen to them, take direction, and it's not just giving orders. A lot of people think being a director, I like to always know what they're thinking. Hey, what do you think about that psychology? What do you think about this? Sometimes we'll be filming something and the actor would just do something off script and I will not call cut. I tell them, nope, don't call cut. Let them stay in it. And that to me is where the magic really happens.
I totally agree. I think people that are too stuck to their script sometimes miss out on really great miracles and little opportunities that can happen during the filming process. Because sometimes, it's hard to write dialogue the way that it would naturally come out, or an actor might come up with something amazing in that moment, and if you're just like, oh, that wasn't that line, and you call cut, you might miss out on probably the best take, because there is that realism and the way that those characters might have actually reacted in that moment. So I definitely am on the same side with you there.
Yeah, you take them out. If you do that, you take them immediately out. And now, another thing is, I'll tell you, one of the biggest things I've learned is I never critique an actor in public. I live by a phrase, You praise in public, you critique in private. If I have to give the actor a pointer, even if it's something like simple as a direction or something, I pull them to the side. I never do it in front of people. I think that is so important for just the respect aspect, and just for their own creativity, that they don't feel like, hey, you're kind of putting me, they don't feel like you kind of like, doing it in front of everyone. I think that's very, very important. Those are things they don't teach you in any of these fancy film schools. I never went to any fancy film school. Didn't know anything about filming, and it's things you learn as you go. I think that's also a big key factor for any future directors or any independent filmmakers. Always critique your actors and actresses in private, and you praise them in public. That's just key.
I think it's really respectful to do that. And also, because I act as well, I've been in a position where sometimes you do get criticized in public, and I think it kind of makes you a bit shy or a little embarrassed, or it just changes your energy a little bit. It's like when you get yelled at in public, it's like, all of a sudden your heart sinks a little bit, and then your energy, your vibe is different. And I totally agree. I think actors can be really fragile, and some actors take things better than others. Some people will take it to heart. And I think when you pull them aside and you kind of just go, I really like this, but you can maybe improve on that. I think the best thing, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but it's called the shit sandwich, where you give something good, you put the criticism in the middle, and then you end with something good as well. So I think delivering a shit sandwich is probably the best way to criticize people, because it still gives them something positive to think about.
Correct. Yeah. Listen, I have actors that have come on and they'll give me, an idea, and I'll say, listen, hey, that's a great idea. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for this scene, but I'll tell you what, maybe we can use it later. And I will, I'm a man of my word. I'll say, let's use it later. Even if I don't use it in production, even if it doesn't make it, at least you give them that. Because if you give them that, then they're willing to give you so much more in return.
Yeah, 100%. And then you mentioned about sort of going for Tubi and Amazon Prime and such. Has there been a requirement for paperwork and such, and difficulties along the lines of, when the family gets involved, sort of, what have been your learnings with the paperwork and dealing with friends and family and, people on the crew and the cast, for those distribution models? What's been required?
So we could talk about Amazon Prime. For Amazon Prime, for those of you who don't know, any filmmaker, you don't have to go through an aggregator or a middleman. You can go through Video Prime Direct. You can upload your film directly to Amazon Prime. And what that does is that there are requirements. You have to have a certain poster ratio, 2 posters, 1 vertical, 1 horizontal. Your film has to have a certain level of quality. You have to also buy captions. You can buy them from Rev or third parties. Those are some of the requirements for Prime. And pretty much it takes about 2 or 3 weeks for them to upload the film, to accept the film. They have to review it. They'll tell you if the image is padded, if any error messages, you'll get them, and then they'll tell you to fix them. With Tubi, we just submitted 𝐓𝐇𝐈 and Graves to Tubi. Tubi has been very, very hard. Let me just tell you this. So there's a company, you can cut the aggregator out. It's called Film Hub. They pitch to about, I want to say, don't quote me on this, about 36 different titles, including Peacock, Hulu, Peacock, Hulu, Tubi. They have a couple of different, basically, platforms that they service. But basically, they wanted at least 7 different poster sizes. And what happens is they have what's called QC, which is quality control. If you fail QC with Film Hub for Tubi 3 times, you can't upload your film. Wow. So it's pretty intense. You have to make sure that you're paying attention to the aspect ratios. And if you look at, I was looking at YouTube, I was looking at everyone who had issues with Film Hub. It's difficult. It could be very challenging when it comes to the poster sizing and upscaling footage. That's been most of the challenge for me. But we passed QC, and we're gonna have Graves and 𝐓𝐶 on Tubi in December. But it's taken since February.
Tubi is such an interesting place. I love watching Tubi movies. Some are really bad, some are really good. How are you kind of dealing with sort of the requirements for those sorts of things? are they different? Do they require different contracts? You know, one of our guests in the past mentioned that, you know, if you are the screenwriter, you need to almost sign a contract with yourself, giving the rights to the director in the film, essentially, that you're allowing all that. Have you had any issues with that, sort of the contract side of things?
So with the actors, or are you saying with the platform?
With the platform. Yeah.
With the platform, no. I've never had any issues when each actor signs their contract. Basically, it's included in the contract that I'm going to be putting this on social platforms, and it just helps them. Actually, It helps them more than anything. So they never usually have any issue with me putting their images or their likenesses on Amazon or Tubi. In the past, I have had issues with actors, not holding up their end of the bargain, and those things are dealt with, contracts and litigation and privately, and but you do have those kind of issues. Those things happen. That's why you have contracts, and I tell people, like, they're like, oh, I have my buddy of mine, he wants to be in the film, he's not an actor or an actress, and I tell them straight up, I say, listen, you want to be in the film? They're like, yeah. They think it's all fun and games until they're doing a scene and it's 5 hours to do a back and forth dialogue scene. They're like, you know what, this isn't for me. So those things, if you're an actor or an actress, most of the time they know what it takes. They've been on set. They've been on all these different sets, so they know what's required of them. They know the hours of labor. They know that a scene can take up to 5 hours to do. It's people who come on and think, oh, that looks cool, I'll do that. And then they realize, you know what, hey, I don't want to do it. I know I signed the contract, but... And that's where it kind of gets sticky,
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's super interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate how long the filmmaking process is, really.
Oh, yeah. They
Especially
see the final product, and they're just like, oh, that's great, I want to do that. And then they don't realize
they're like,
involved.
oh, that looks so cool. And then you realize that just literally two characters talking to each other at a table is going to take, at least 3 takes each angle, plus reaction shots if necessary. And like, oh man, it just adds up. It adds up.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, I'd love to know sort of some tips that you have for filmmakers. I know you've kind of sprinkled them in as we've been talking so far, but I'd love to know sort of maybe for post-production, for filmmakers that have just finished their films, what would you suggest? Nothing has been edited yet. All their footage is now on their hard drives and such. What do you think is sort of the biggest takeaways from your past experience that could help someone in the post-production?
The biggest takeaways for me, I'll tell you, is making sure you look through every bit of footage you have. I think the biggest thing that's missed is B-roll. A lot of people need to do pickup shots. They're like, all right, I got to do a lot of B-roll shots. Just make sure when you look at your footage and you're looking through your hard drives that you have all of the transitions. If you have a day scene going to a night scene, make sure you have, a time lapse, or, you shoot drone footage, or you stand outside for B-roll to do a time lapse for night to day and day to night. I think those things are really, really overlooked. And they're so minor, but it's really something that's really overlooked when you're in post-production. Sound is huge. A lot of people, this is where I've struggled as well with sound. I use a boom mic, and sometimes I should have used the lavalier. The lavalier was better, and I used the boom mic, and now I got to stack the audio and tell the editor to stack it. Then it sounds a little muffled, and those are the issues I've run in post-production. What else have I run into? I've run into soundtrack licensing music. I try to go on YouTube and get copyright-free music all the time. Sometimes it just doesn't fit. I think music is key. I like music for all of my scenes.
Yeah.
It's just something I've always done. They're like, my editor's like, you don't need the music. I'm like, dude, we got to put the music in. It just feels we have to set the tone. I think those things are pretty important, but mostly overlooked.
Yeah, for sure. Do you tend to make your own music or hire a musician to be part of it? Or do you sort of try to get existing songs to put into your film?
So I use copyright-free music, and also I have artists that are part of my cast that are actually musicians. I have Just Once Music. I have Paul Spate. These guys are underground artists here in New York. They are good friends of mine, and I try to incorporate underground artists into the independent films. That's what we do here at La Salle Productions. I want the underdog and the guys you didn't hear, you don't even know about, to put their songs in my film, and I've done that since. I've always reached out to different independent artists. Hey, listen, I like your work. I would love to put it in my film. They'll usually send me a contract. and we'll sign it. It'll be whatever it is, the stipulations are, and yeah. So I've done that, and I think that's also key, because now you've included them, and now they're invested in the film, and now they're going to promote your film.
Yeah,
it works that way too.
That's right. It does help you with the distribution side of things too. People will share, especially if they're part of it. Which is why I think sometimes when you have like scenes with a lot of extras, just get a bunch of influencers to chuck in there.
Yeah, it'll go pretty far, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. Where can people find Where can people find you, Wilfred, and what have you got coming up?
So you can find me officially on my website at LaSalleProductions.com. I also have a YouTube channel. If you type in Will and then La Salle, you just space the LA, space SALLE, I'll come up. I also have an IMDb. You can also just Google me. All my films are on Prime. You got Graves, you got �𝐒𝐿o 2, you got 𝐿O 3. They're on Prime. And the next film I have coming out next year is called Oculus. The trailer is on my YouTube channel. The next trailer is set to debut in January of next year. It's called Enter the Oculus. That would be the name of the next trailer. This trailer was just called Welcome to the Oculus. It's a sci-fi film, but it's pretty unique. It has 3 different characters, storylines, and I think the story, it's my first take at going for a sci-fi horror kind of film.
Awesome.
I think it looks good. You know, I cut my hair for the film. I usually have my hair really long. I shave my beard. So I kind of, you know, my fiance is losing her mind here. She's like, you have to grow your beard back. You look you're like a firefighter. You look crazy. And I'm like, listen, you know, this is what you do. You just do it. I do it because I love it. I will never ask my actors or actresses to do something that I'm not willing to do myself, whether it's hanging out of a car with a camera, even the cinematographers. I will always put myself at risk before I put anyone else at risk. But that's where you can find me. You can just Google me if you want. I'll come up. I have an Instagram page, La Salle Productions. I have my regular page, La Salle, Wilfred La Salle, and I'll come up. You can add me, follow me. You can DM me. Yeah, you can email me any questions you guys have. We're based in New York, but we have actors and actresses from Pennsylvania to Los Angeles to New Orleans to, I mean, we're expanding.
I love it. Thank you so much, Wilfred, for joining and sharing so much great knowledge. It was awesome, and I can't wait to watch all of your films. I'm definitely gonna dive in deep, find all of them, especially Oculus sounds amazing. I'll put all the links in the show notes. And once again, thank you. This was The Creative Constitution, and we'll see you in the next one.